Okay, so I've never done this before, so we're gonna see how it works, but we're experimenting, we're trying new things. I'm taking risks. I'm really brave. All right, so who am I? I'm Amy Elizabeth, and if you are new here, you wouldn't know that, but you also wouldn't know that I run a group called the Art Collab / the Artists Collab. Lab because it's a place to experiment and take risks and try things, and collab because we're doing it together. We're in community, and as artists I think we can a lot of times feel isolated or isolate ourselves. I would never leave my house if I didn't have to, and so it is good to commune with other artists and have conversation and push and grow together and learn together. The people are amazing, and I don't have to leave my house, which is great because everything's online. So the focus of the Art Collab is that every month we have a prompt, and the prompt is a piece of artwork, and from that prompt we are to create our own piece of artwork. And so the prompt really is just a jumping off point to engage in conversation together, to do introspective work, gather ideas, and to create something that we would not have created if we didn't have that unique jumping off point. But the prompt becomes so much more than the prompt. It really becomes a month of learning about the artist behind the prompt and who they were, why they created what they created, just more of their techniques and maybe life story, their whys and their hows. With that, we are gathering more information to kind of filter through us and pour out just art that we might surprise ourselves by. I know that's true for me. It has pushed me to create things that I would have never created before that are actually kind of rad, if I do say so myself. And every month the art that the members create always hit me in such a soft spot. So this month the prompt was September by Grandma Moses. Why Grandma Moses? It's a great question. Every month an artist kind of comes to me, and this month was no exception. I was meeting with a friend in August, and she is a homeschooler, and she was saying that in her co-op she was going to be teaching art and other things, but that the artist first in the curriculum was Grandma Moses, and how much she had just loved Grandma Moses. And she's like, have you heard of her? And I was like, no, but 100% that's going to be our next artist for the Art Lab, and here we are. So Grandma Moses really took me by surprise, and at first I was like, am I sure that this is the artist for the month? Because I didn't necessarily connect with her. Absolutely, she was meant to be the artist for the month, because remember, everything is about everything. So let me back up and talk a bit about Grandma Moses. So Grandma Moses was born in 1860, and she died in 19... Siri wants to tell you about Grandma Moses too. Yeah, rural America. That's accurate, Siri. Rural America. So Grandma Moses was born in 1860. She died in 1961, so she was 101 years old. Let's back it up a little bit. 1860 is a year before the Civil War started. The Civil War. So Grandma Moses saw the Civil War, World War I, saw the Great Depression, she saw World War II, she saw a lot of things. And not only that, but Grandma Moses had 10 kids and only 5 survived infancy, and her husband passed away in 1927. That is right. I had to look at my notes. I'm trying to be sneaky and not look at my notes. So her husband passed away in 1927. I mean, this woman lived a life. And Grandma Moses actually didn't start painting until she was 78. Okay, which I just absolutely love that, because here I am, 41, trying to make a pivot and wondering if it's too late in the game. And Grandma Moses was 78, and she ended up becoming this famous painter, and her paintings were on Hallmark cards. She was given like 2 honorary PhDs. I mean, the woman found success in her later years. So if you're wondering if it's too late to pivot, no, it is not. Second of all, I feel like this also speaks to Grandma Moses's adaptability and resilience. She took up painting because she had arthritis and could no longer do the embroidery she loved doing. So instead of saying, woe is me, my body is failing me, I'm getting older, I better just sit in my rocker and do nothing, she was like, no, I'm gonna pivot and I'm gonna do something else, because my life is not done. I have tons more life to give. Also, Grandma Moses would paint with her one hand, and then when it got tired, she would just switch hands and paint with the other hand. So the woman was unstoppable. I love her. Clearly, because of this, she had no formal training. So her art falls under the category of naive art. And naive art is really just kind of what it sounds. It's no formal training, but also with that comes the freedom of not having the classical like rules and structures and maybe ideas of like perfectionism placed upon you. I could also go into why I think we need to know the rules to break the rules, but nevertheless, you do see this like childlike wonder in her paintings. And she did paint from her memories of growing up. And so she wanted to show people what life was like back, in the day. And so you get these images that really are just so nostalgic. Her own memories are translating as just that, just these dreamy scenes. They have this like optimism to them. The color scheme just feels like very hopeful and cozy. And this was one reason why I was worried I wasn't going to connect with Grandma Moses, because my work tends to be a little dark. I did connect with Grandma Moses and ultimately found so much inspiration in her work. So as I was thinking, this is why I'm doing a video, because normally I write something, but I have way more thoughts than I could even write down. But unfortunately, my spoken word is not eloquent either. So we'll see if I can get through this. So when I was looking at Grandma Moses's work and trying to find inspiration, I 100% connected with naive art. Our job is to play, and our inner child is an artist, and connecting with our inner child is just playing and creating and letting go of rules and expectations and just being free to express and put out there what you need to. And so naive art was really kind of top of my list. So one of the things about naive art too is it tends to like lack a true perspective. And you can see this in Grandma Moses's art, where everything almost seems to be like distance doesn't, like things that are supposedly further away aren't like that much smaller than things that are closer. Like there's just kind of this flat perspective. But to me, I loved that because I feel like as a kid, everything feels distorted. And we talked about this in the art lab, about like this one woman said like the woods behind her house when she was a kid felt so large and just like never ending. And now when she sees it, it's like this little tiny patch of like a few trees. But as a kid, there is so much awe and wonder, and the scale of the world is so huge. And I think as we get older, our like cynical nature just takes things that are lovely and beautiful as kids and makes them like more blah. And that's not to our benefit. That is totally to our detriment. So I also connected with Grandma Moses's paintings of rural like farm life. You get people out working the land. You get this very much, just outside enjoying what's there. You get these very distinct seasons. And for me, this September has been one filled with a lot of grief and what I have felt are like setbacks in my own growth. And I'm trying to give myself grace. So I was talking with my therapist about Grandma Moses, because we talk, everything is about everything. And we talk about what's going on in the art lab because it always relates to what's going on in my life. And I was saying that what I see in Grandma Moses's work is this idea of rhythms and repetition and really ultimately reminders, because the earth, we have these very distinct seasons and a year is not that long and we cycle through them. And so we have the comfort in that repetition of the seasons, that when winter is here, we know that summer is around the corner. Winter doesn't last forever. Fall doesn't last forever. Spring doesn't last forever, and summer doesn't last forever. We are going to cycle through these seasons, and that is predictable. And so when we are in these low lows, we know that we are going to come out of them and that we are going to reach the high highs, those points where we just feel like we are making progress and moving forward and enjoying and seeing the beauty in everything. And those also don't last forever. And so there is comfort in the repetition. Also, I love people working the land in these images, because my idea of working the land is all you can do is tend to it. You can't control the weather. You can't control how much sun there is, what the heat is like, how much rain you get. All you can do is do the work, right? And every year you do the work and you know that the earth is going to provide. And some years it provides less, and some years it provides more. But it always provides, and we can count on that. And so I viewed this as a testimony to the fact that life goes on. And Grandma Moses, clearly the earth provided for her enough because she lived until she was 101. And she saw battles and hardships. She did not live this easy life where everything made sense. I don't know, does anyone? I would like to meet somebody who lives this easy life. And yet, amidst the hardship, she never gave up. She never gave up when she had children die, when her husband died, when I'm sure it felt the world was crumbling around her. She knew the earth would provide. She just had to keep going. When her arthritis made it so that she couldn't participate in these things that gave her so much joy, she didn't give up. She just kept moving through. So at the same therapy session, as I was kind of talking about the grief and ultimately the anger that I think I've really been experiencing this month, anger as a sort of like reaction to injustice. Anger is not, there are no good or bad emotions. We feel them. It's just how we regulate them that can be harmful to others. So anger is good. It is your friend. Your emotions are your friends. And so my therapist acknowledged that we haven't really talked about the anger much in therapy. And I'm like, yeah, we haven't, but I've definitely been aware of the anger kind of throughout my whole process. And she said, why don't you go out, find kind of an isolated place, and kind of this idea of grounding, right? Like take your shoes off, let your feet sink into the earth, like feel the earth, and just yell out into it, because the earth will absorb it and can handle it, which we know the universe is infinite and it can handle what we throw at it, and it still wants good for us. So she saw the look on my face and she was like, oh, you don't want to do it? And I was like, no, I just don't know when I'm gonna have time, because I have my kids. I'm leaving here soon. I have to pick up my kids soon. Like, when am I gonna do this? And she was like, just go to the preserve right there. And so I looked out her window, and I've always kind of admired the fact that there's this little preserve there. And I was like, this feels right. And so I went over and I took my shoes off. I captured a couple pictures first because I knew I wanted to document what I was about to encounter. And so I did. I took my shoes off and I just felt the earth. I was trying to like conjure up some sort of yelling, but I couldn't. And I didn't want to force it, because if that wasn't authentic to what I was feeling then, I didn't want to make myself do it. I wanted to do what felt right. And the grieving that felt right at that time was just to cry and to whisper out into the world, to the universe, I am so mad at you. I am so mad at you. And it was just this really lovely fall day where the sun was shining and there was a warmth and the breeze was, cool. That air just kind of moving across, like carrying away everything that I was trying to give out to the universe, cooling me down, and yet that sun like wrapping me in its warm embrace. And I just stood out there for a while and eventually sat down and just kind of felt the ground and made sure I was connecting with it. And to me, that moment where the earth just kind of took it and still kept me in its beauty, that felt like love. And that felt like my reminder from the earth of the rhythms of keep going, keep going. The sun is still shining. You are still warm. You are being held. I am carrying away. I'm giving you like this fresh air, and I am carrying away your grief. I'm taking it from you. Keep giving it to me. Keep moving. And just knowing what I had just said about Grandma Moses's art being this like reflection of the rhythms and the reminders, I wanted to make art from that. So all month I did have in the back of my mind the idea of working with a previous self-portrait I had taken. I didn't have one in particular, but just the idea of working with a self-portrait that I had taken maybe during a darker period, plenty to choose from, and using it as a reminder that, because things have, from self-portraits I've taken in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, things have gotten better and they've gotten harder. They've gotten better and they've gotten harder. I would like to think that things are trending up and to the right though. And so I wanted to just take something to serve as a reminder that I made it through that hard time. I will make it through this hard time. I wanted to work with Grandma Moses's reminders. I wanted to work with naive art. I wanted to work with the earth, and I wanted to work with my own reminders. When I took the images before I kind of did this exercise where I gave it all to the universe, there was one that I connected with, and I was like, what if I make some naive art from this, picture I've taken? And so at first I kind of took my kids' acrylics and I tried to paint something and it was not going well. So I was like, okay, what about the adult coloring crayons, oil pastels? So I didn't have any. It just felt right to like have that childlike play with like coloring crayons. And so I went and I picked up some oil pastels and I just made this like really crude drawing of the feeling. I tried to have the warmth, the spots of warmth and the blue sky and the wind kind of carrying everything away and across. And then I had this image in mind that I had taken where I am kind of curled up in a ball. And I realized that I wanted to put these side by side, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted a diptych and I wanted to connect them because there's that connection of the past, the hard past, and the present reminder of the universe saying, keep moving through, it gets better. And I was looking at this image that I had taken, and I had this idea of being safely wrapped in the womb and just curled up, how I was curled up almost like a fetus. And I hadn't made that connection before, but once it became obvious, it's like, that's obviously what I was doing. I was curling up like a fetus. I just didn't recognize that's what I was doing. And so I put myself in a womb, in a safe womb. And I wanted to connect the thread, I guess the umbilical cord. Just realized that now. Wow, how did I not realize that until now? This is why I externally process. So I connected that umbilical cord through the message of, the wind and the warmth from that moment where I was outside doing that exercise, and I wrapped it around myself from the past, because here I am cycling through one of those hard times and it will get better. And that's what that art says to me. That's what this piece says. And yes, it is naive art. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't draw. I photograph. Maybe I embroider a little bit. But this is not what I do. But this is what I do. I can do this. I can play. I can have childlike play, and I can express what's happening through my drawings, and I can color. So this is a piece I definitely would not have created if it weren't for this prompt, and I am so grateful for it, because this is exactly the prompt and the person I needed to study in this month. So to Grandma Moses, thank you for documenting your memories and having them serve as reminders for us that we just have to keep moving through.